Hello, and welcome to Pathways Through the Prairie, where we interview North Dakota librarians and library staff, state agency leaders and employees, and interesting North Dakotans. I am State Librarian Mary Soucie, and today I am joined by the Chief People Officer for the state of North Dakota. Molly Herrington joined Team North Dakota in 2019 and became the Chief People Officer and also Director of the Human Resources Management Division, or HRMS, which is a division of the Office of OMB. And Molly's been in that role since August of 22. Molly, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, Molly, what is the core mission and priorities of the Human Resources Management Division and your role as Chief People Officer?
Good question. So at OMB as a whole, we exist to serve the other agencies within the state system, whether that's through procurement or fiscal services or facilities management or HRMS. And so at HRMS, as part of that service puzzle, we are just that, a service entity. And that's the culture that we formulate here, is to be service focused. So we exist to make sure that three things happen: to make sure that our workforce is well supported in their journey through their life cycle as an employee. We make sure that we're effectively structured to get the work done and services delivered to our citizens in an effective and efficient manner. And we are positioned to help our agencies and help our individual team members advance their performance and achieve that highest level of performance individually and collectively. So the work we do all ties back to that.
So primarily supporting state employees and state agencies.
Absolutely.
And what about Chief People Officer? Some people may not have heard that term before.
Absolutely. So think Chief People Officer, maybe formally titled something like CHRO or Chief HR Officer. Some of the differences that exist there really are on the developmental side of people versus the administrative side of HR. So even though I do both functions, that Chief People Officer was a very intentional title at the time that the position was retitled, because we need to build our workforce in-house. We need to understand what capabilities exist within our complicated structure. We need to have succession planning, whether that's formally or informally, in place and happening and having those conversations, which also means we need to be building our people as leaders at every single level. So that people focus versus HR administration focus was a key part of that title.
Very cool. And Molly, the State Library's vision is providing pathways to knowledge and opportunities. What was your pathway into public service?
This is a good question. And I would say my pathway to public service was in some ways accidental and in some ways really intentional, like a blend of both. So I started out in the nonprofit sector, and I've always had a heart for service that is just wired into me since I was a kid. And so when I started in that nonprofit arena, I was building people. That was the focus, was building that next generation of leaders. And I really enjoyed it. And then I had the opportunity to change directions in the career and move more into that government relations and public affairs space and really focus on building communities and economies. And that was fascinating, and seeing how local government worked and regional government and state government and federal government, it was fascinating to me. And it was most interesting, how did people fit into that process and what would trigger them to be involved in that process, either as an elected official or as a citizen or as a staff member. And so that was just part of that journey of my life, was working there a lot. And then I was going for my master's degree at the University of Mary, and one of our assignments was to listen to a lunch and learn that Monsignor Shea had done internally for his staff. And he talks about your profession as your vocation. Like what would the workforce look like? What would the world look like if every one of us viewed our job that we show up to every day as our vocational calling? And that conversation, that probably 30-minute lunch and learn, really made me sit back and reevaluate, what do I want to be building? I love to build things. And the truth is, I really wanted to build people. And a great way to build people and support people was in the public sector space. And so I would say that really got me thinking differently about, where did I want my career to go? And how did I want to serve? If I'm investing this many hours a week or a year, how do I want to do that? And I would really like to build others. And so that started my journey.
Wow, that's really powerful. And what was your master's in?
It's a master's in business administration.
Okay. So if someone's interested in HR work, is there a degree specifically in HR, or business is the route to take?
I would say you could get to HR through several channels. There's not one set path. You have to do this.
Okay.
You can have an HR focus in what you're doing, or sometimes it just happens naturally.
Mm-hmm. Has there been anything surprising about being in the people building space?
No, nothing. People are so predictable. No, I'm kidding. You have to. Yes, there are a lot of surprising elements about building people. And even when I started in the business of building people, and then I transitioned to more of that government and public affairs space, in that organization, I was still building people. I helped stand up several development programs over the years, and that was just a passion project. That wasn't part of my formal role.
Sure.
And so some things that have been surprising along the way is people wait to seek advancement until they check every box on a posting, or every box on what that next position needs to be successful. And I think, check a majority of those boxes and then take a leap of faith and trust yourself to grow and stretch into that new role. Use that as a challenge for you. You probably have the foundation of those core functions. You don't need to be 100% on day one. Mm-hmm. Let us help build you into that next role, that next challenge.
Because if you're 100% on day one, you have nowhere to grow.
Right. That would be boring.
Right.
So that's interesting to watch how people do that. And it happens across generations. It happens across genders. Like, that's a pretty common thing that we tend to see. Some other things that have really been interesting at the state specifically is our agencies have a desire for higher collaboration with one another, maybe than they initially realized even, 5 to 6 years ago. And so we've been able in the HR space to do a lot of really good work to advance us forward in talent acquisition, in talent development, in employee relations, and that classic HR side of the house, and compensation. We've been able to have a lot of forward momentum by just coming together to the same table and having the right conversations to move us forward. Mm-hmm. So that has been a really pleasant surprise. We have some amazing talent in this state. So to see them come together to accomplish something bigger than themselves or just their agency is really a motivating process to watch.
That's really cool. It wasn't the intention of doing the podcast. The reason for interviewing state agencies is just to help North Dakotans know about the amazing work, right, and the resources available to them. Because in my world, we're all about resources. But what's been the fun thing is there've been some new partnerships that are growing up and developing through conversation with other agency directors. It'll come out, I think, probably before yours. But I interviewed the director of DOCR, Corrections and Rehabilitation. And just through something he said during the podcast, I was like, but there's a place we can help. So we're starting to have conversations now with DOCR, like, how can we partner with you? How can we support you?
There is a lot of opportunity there. And DOCR's mindset around rehabilitating first and building good neighbors for us to work alongside with in the long term, I think creates some powerful opportunity.
Yeah, it was really it was a really incredibly interesting interview because of that focus on rehabilitation and helping someone to make better choices when they go back to their community rather than just locking the door. He said something about people think public safety is just removing a person who's made a bad choice, but ultimately public safety is about giving that person the tools so that when they're back in the community they can make a better choice. It
Absolutely.
was very, very powerful.
Right. I think in a similar vein, how DOCR is working to think forward on the rehabilitation process. In a lot of ways, it's not that different than what we do as we build our team members here at the state. We're really working also to personalize and to modernize that employee experience. And I think in a lot of ways, DOCR is working to personalize and modernize that corrections and rehabilitation mindset and process.
So, what do you see as an exciting opportunity or areas of growth for your agency, for your
My
division?
list is long, Mary.
Pick one, Molly. Pick
So
one.
here's what I would say. The list of opportunities that I have, they're not just for OMB and they're not just for HRMS. When I show up at work, the mindset I have is, how do we build for Team ND? And that's what I challenge my team to have every day. And how do we do that through a mindset of service, support, and collaboration versus just being an authoritarian focused model of you will do XYZ, because that's not really how we're designed, and that really doesn't help us advance forward. So when I think about that personalizing and modernizing that employee experience, that looks a few different ways. And we have some really great opportunity within the public sector to do some catch up with what's happening on the private side, but to do it in a way that uniquely works for us because it's not a one-for-one swap. And so some of those modernizations really look like exploring different digital solutions to help us simplify and streamline the services that we bring. Like, think about your performance management process that you go through every year. Okay, right now, it's pretty limited in scope, but what if it was a more robust year-long set of activities? And I'm not talking about extra work, but what if you as a manager were fed something once a quarter to help you or to empower you to work more closely with your staff, specifically focusing on their development, their progress, celebrating those milestones along the way instead of waiting until the end of the year to say, oh gosh, we have to fill out this form.
Right.
That's not really talent management or performance management. That's one piece of an ongoing cycle. And so how can we use some different solutions? Maybe that's pulling in resources from Gallup. We've spent a lot of energy looking at engagement and building engagement across Team ND. And that's not about managers just boosting their numbers. That's about managers actually having visibility into what's happening on their teams. And I will tell you this, when we have engaged team members, they return phone calls faster. They're more pleasant to work with as we're delivering those services. They're more empowered to think differently about how we deliver services to our citizens. So when we're talking about engagement, I am really talking about personalizing and modernizing the team members' work experience and helping support our managers to evolve in that cycle too. So that's really exciting for us. I think when we get some of those pieces in place, some of which we've already deployed, but there is a laundry list or a wish list that we have, and we just need to pace so that we get the usage and adoption along the way as well. That truly will help us better manage that team member performance, make that learning cycle and learning process more meaningful, which will ultimately build to really great career progression at any level within the state. One of my favorite things about doing the people work inside the state is that a team member could have every single one of their careers, because we all know we don't just have one career anymore. You could have every one of your careers within the state system, which means you never restart your retirement process. You never restart your benefit accrual process. You maintain all of those things that just happen in the background and we maybe don't pay attention to every day, while still growing and diversifying and evolving yourself. There's not many organizations you can do that with. So that's exciting to me.
Cool.
And the other thing is growth in leadership. And I don't mean just up and coming leadership. I love to see our seasoned leaders grow and challenge themselves and do that in collaboration with all of the generations and levels of experience within their organization. And so that cultural shift of truly having leadership everywhere within our organization is a really exciting element, and it's an exciting time to be a part of Team ND.
Mm-hmm. So now I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, I've had one career. I mean, I taught for a minute and a half, and I've been a librarian for over 31 years. And so I guess I need a new career.
I would say you've had multiple careers. You haven't always been a state librarian.
No, but I've been a professional librarian for 31 years. So I'm not thinking of those as distinct careers. They've all been within the library field. Yes, I've had different positions within the library field.
Correct.
But I've been a professional librarian for over 31 years.
So a lot of people may still have one career within a professional track. But again, it's those advancement opportunities.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if we think about, let's think about an engineer, because that's easy and we've got great engineers all over the state. And so let's say you're an engineer and you start as an E1 in Agency A. And after a few years, Agency A maybe doesn't have the FTE or the capacity or the need to advance you, but Agency B does. You could make a shift across agencies, still under the state of North Dakota umbrella, advance your career, and then maybe a few years after that, Agency A, where you started, is able to say, hey, we've got this manager position open. You now have the experience to qualify for that. Would you come back and do this? And so I think if we lower our boundaries a little bit as agencies and we think about using the opportunities across agencies, in the private sector, we call them across disciplines or across divisions, to advance and develop our people, we really could accelerate the progression of our team members. A really good example of this is our very own OMB director, Joe Morissette. And so if you follow his career, he's been across multiple agencies in a similar vein. He's been in that finance vein for most of his career, but he was really able to develop different degrees of understanding by taking those opportunities of movement. And now we've got a great leader at OMB. And so I think, how can we do more of that?
Sure.
Or how can we do special assignment work to say, hey, Mary, I really need your skill set on my team for the next 6 months to do this project.
Sure.
How can you come in, be a part of that, accelerate it, and then you go back to your normal assignment?
Gotcha. That's really, really intriguing me, actually. So I'm going to be percolating on that conversation.
Well, you just
for a
call me if
while,
you want to
Molly.
leave that librarian train.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. What are some of the challenges that you're facing? This seems like a big shift in mindset for state government. So are there some challenges?
I would say you're right. It is a big shift in mindset. We've been working on it for several years, so it's not an overnight change. And we're going to have to continue to work on it. And every single day when I come to work, I learn something new that I didn't know. And so the more I learn, the better we can do collectively as a team. The more we all learn, the better we can do as a team. And so I would say some of the biggest challenges are resource driven. The desire is there to work together for the most part. The ability to do the work is there, like the knowledge. People are ready to start applying. But I've got capacity challenges when it comes to financial resources, when it comes to our partners at NDIT developing some of those digital services. They know how to do it. It's a time and a money constraint. So those are some big constraints for us. And the other is people and having that access to people. At HRMS, we are 12 people strong when we are fully loaded. that's a really small official core team to be driving a lot of these big statewide initiatives. And so maybe when HRMS functioned differently a decade or two ago, that made sense. That is a big challenge for us now. And so to work through that people resource problem, that's where collaboration with our agency partners really has come into play and has to come into play. And we don't want to create in a silo and then push it out and say, Mary, you must do this. I'd rather invite you to the table, have you be part of the solution, and maybe along the way we can do some of that resource sharing that makes sense for not just our two agencies, but for the state as a whole. So it's really changing the mindset on how we partner resources together, because none of us are getting an influx of new resources anytime soon.
Right, yeah. So, Molly, of course, in our field, access to quality, credible information is crucial for informed citizens. Vitally important for state agencies to have access to that credible information. And for state employees, there's just so much information out there today that isn't accurate. So how does your agency ensure that Team ND is getting relevant information and data and that resources are accessible and understandable?
That's a good question, Mary. And I think it's been an evolution for us. So being able to launch Team ND Connect, our statewide intranet, was a major shift for our agency and for HRMS specifically to be able to get meaningful content out to our team members in a timely basis. So that statewide intranet, we house everything that we do out there in every element of HRMS. So whether you're looking for learning and development opportunities to progress your career, Team ND Connect. If you're looking for universal policies or a policy manual or employee handbook, that's all out there. If you're looking for an engagement toolkit, or you're wondering, wow, we're going through big change, how do we manage change? We've got the Change Management Hub out there for you, begging to be used. When we look at talent acquisition and how do we get people in the door, we've got a great talent acquisition process happening out there right now. There are live updates that are changing almost every day as we move through this transition process, but it is there designed to help other HR professionals, but also day-to-day managers within our state system. How do you seek that talent and seal the deal to get top talent in the door for us? So we've got really exciting things happening there. The other piece when it comes to providing quality information is through teams. We have a Team ND team within teams. And so that has been a really helpful way to pump information out on a regular basis that maybe doesn't warrant its own email or its own town hall, but it's helpful for you to know and to have in a timely manner. So we've used Teams a lot for that. We also use Team ND News, which is our once a month statewide newsletter. That has been a game changer for us. And the other piece that we use is something, the statewide career site, www.nd.gov/careers, gets you straight to our careers page that has absolutely any posting live in the state system. So that has been a great link between what we're doing in-house, and the public, getting them in. The last thing I'll mention is this last year, our goal was to get a handle on the data. And as you know,
it's a big handle.
That's a big handle. Yes. And so it's not perfect, but we have made some great leaps. One of our team members actually did a career pivot. She went from being a software developer to being an HR professional. And the beauty in that is she brings that technical knowledge with her as well. And so she's been able to take the data that we have available and in the system and spin it into Power BI so it's now in a usable real-time dashboard. And so that's a huge piece from an HR standpoint to get all of that information in a similar fashion into every HR team member's hands. So whether we're looking at what's our turnover rate, what's our compensation comparables, how are we trending on number of applications coming in? What does it look like converting those applicants to hires? That sort of data that has existed in the system, while not perfect, because we may be putting it, agencies may put it in the system slightly different, it's pretty good. And we spent a lot of energy scrubbing it and then organizing it so that this data that was floating out there is now useful to the HR professionals in the state. And that was a really big win for us. We've needed that for a long time.
That the librarian in me is jumping for joy at that amazing use of data and information and resources. Molly, I feel like we should pivot for a minute and talk about telecommuting. I've been with the state for 11 years, and when I started at North Dakota State Library, we had one employee who telecommuted on an as-needed basis because it's much easier to do PM on our computers in the evenings, right when no one's using them, kind of a thing. And now over half of our agency telecommutes in some fashion or another. Does that present challenges for your team, like helping agencies manage telecommuting?
Telecommuting is a big topic right now, nationwide, right? We hear a lot of this from private sector, public sector, at a national level, at a local level. It is a hot topic. And I think the reality of our world today is no one solution is the perfect right solution for everyone. And so it's really important from my lens that agency leaders have the ability to manage their team members in a way that is best for the culture of their organization and is in the best interest of how we deliver services to our citizens, first and foremost. So those pieces need to be taken into consideration. I would say the shift in mindset to remote, hybrid, telecommute, whichever of those you choose or a combination of, has been a powerful game changer for our ability to attract and retain talent at the state of North Dakota. We have brought talent in that otherwise we would not have. We have employees in every single county in the state of North Dakota. Think about what that does for economic development rather than forcing you to centralize in 1, 2, or 3 of the primary cities. Mm-hmm. So there are some beautiful benefits to this. And yes, there are challenges. The way you manage an in-person team is not a one-for-one swap for the way you manage a hybrid or remote team member. And so it really comes back to open and transparent communication between the manager and the team member, clear expectations, and that accountability is crucial. Mm-hmm. So for us, if you would have been up here the last 3 days, every one of these spaces next to me was full. Today you get Allison and I. The rest of my team is still working. They're just changing location. Mm-hmm. And so I think when the mindset is what's really changing, my expectations of them to deliver on high quality work are not changing.
Right.
My expectation of when they do that work or their timeliness to respond to their partners across the state, that doesn't change. What does change is where they sit. Mm-hmm. And so I think when we get down to really what is changing and what's not, that helps us as managers and people leaders to better assess and build for those individuals what they need to be effective team members.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I actually do telecommute a couple days a week, and I do it differently than one of our division directors. On the day she telecommutes, she plans no meetings, and that's her deep dive day. And I'd love to do that, but similar
I would
to
love
you,
a deep dive day.
I don't know that I have a day of the week where I have no meetings at all, like maybe once a month. But it does allow me to dive in a way because there's nobody coming through my door in the same way. And I love when I'm in the building and people come through my door, right? So it is that balance. That balance is important. And I think balance is important for your whole division because you're balancing a ton of balls always.
Yeah. You know what we've really learned, if I just talk about HRMS for a moment, one thing that we've really learned and observed in the last 5 years that we've now been doing this is that, again, we've gotten talent that we never would have been able to get our hands on had I required them to be in Bismarck. They're all in the state of North Dakota, except for one. He lives in Moorhead, but I'm not going to convince him to uproot his family to move across the river. But what we've learned is that a lot of our time, even when we're in the office, is not actually in the office, because our role is to be out with our agency partners and serving them where they need to be served. So one of our team members might say, you know what, I'm coming in on Tuesday and she's going to meet with agencies 1, 2, and 3, all in that same day, to really make sure that she gets that face-to-face time. And so for us, I feel like our team has very intentionally modified how they're getting that quality face-to-face time with the agencies that they're directly serving in that HR capacity. So it's that intentionality is there that maybe was taken for granted before when we were just completely in office.
We did a major reorg, best timing ever. I rolled it out in February of 2020.
Wow, that was
And
fabulous timing.
It was so great. And it completely shifted. It was a change that, our agency had been operating the same way for many, many years. And one of the positions was an outreach position. And the vision was the person that's in it has amazing people skills. He can connect with a wall. He's just so good at that. And so the vision literally was him picking up a cup of coffee and coming upstairs and knocking on Molly's door to say, hey, Molly, I'm so-and-so from the State Library. Can we chat about how the State Library can support your agency? And then March of 2020 happened. And we've had to shift that vision of that position, not based on anything we've done, but on the way the world has changed. And I feel like that's true no matter what agency you are or what seat you sit in within that agency.
I completely agree. And the changes that we've seen, I think, too, when we talk about the desire for agencies to collaborate and that willingness to come to the table and jointly solve solutions, that was some goodness that came from that COVID time period, in my opinion, that we just hadn't been forced to find those new ways to collaborate and leverage each other's strengths in the previous setting. So for how messy COVID was, we got some really beautiful gifts out of that process too.
Yep. I agree wholeheartedly. Absolutely. Molly, any final message you'd like to share with our listeners, either about the work of your agency or state government in general?
Can we just talk for a minute about building our future workforce? I think that's the one thing that is so exciting for me, and it keeps me up at night, because we have got an incredibly low unemployment rate. We've got very talented people that have been with the state for a long time, and they're on the verge of retiring, and I'm grateful that they get that opportunity. And that creates a lot of opportunity for that up-and-coming generation of leaders. And so we have been placing a very intentional focus on how do we build our future workforce? How do we want to support them? How do we want to attract them and bring them in? And so one of the areas that we've really placed a lot of focus on is the statewide internship program. And when we talk about resources being limited and not growing, this is one area where we have seen excellent growth in numbers and quality. And we've also seen additional funding in this space. So this is a win for all of us. So historically, the state has had an internship funding program. And it was just that. It's a pass-through funding program where OMB would be allocated $100,000 per biennium, and agencies could apply to have 50% of an intern's salary covered through this program. And so it was a great way to complement an agency's salary budget and get interns in the door. And we have seen such a demand for interns from agencies that program was so over requested. And so in the 23-25 biennium, we went back and we had a really great conversation with the legislature around this unique opportunity that we have to expose that next generation of talent to the state of North Dakota. Yes, through internships and through some very specific internship programming that we're working to create and that we'll be rolling out in August, actually, in just a couple weeks. So they believe also in building the future workforce for the state of North Dakota. So they amplified that internship funding program to $500,000 per biennium. And so the biennium we just finished was our first one. They renewed it again for this biennium. And we have just seen tremendous engagement from our agency partners, from quality interns coming in the door. And so as those interns get ready to transition out of that college phase, we're so excited to start tracking the data and having the data around how many do we get back? Maybe we don't get them back in that first 1 to 2 years of being out in the working world, but how do we get them back after that?
Sure.
So it's just a really exciting time, and our talent acquisition manager and the team that she's working with from a multi-agency working group, they've just done some really great things. They partnered with our learning and development team to develop an intern day at the Capitol. And so we're doing this in August, and they're going to be focusing on not just life beyond your internship and the opportunity for relationship with the state as an employer. They're also going to be focusing on building some of those career skills that maybe don't get hit on in the classroom, or we need to reinforce from the classroom, like personal branding, financial literacy. BND has their Smart With My Money program, so we're working with that. And I'm so excited to see the energy around collectively building that next generation of leaders.
That's a really exciting opportunity. That's very cool. Molly, I always like to end the podcast, of course, talking about books. I don't ask a librarian, never ask a librarian for their favorite book. We can't give you just one, right? And you're going to be sorry you asked us. So I never ask someone what's your favorite book. You can certainly share that if you want to, but what's a book that you've read that you love telling other people about?
See, that's a dangerous question to ask me because I too love books. But how about I reframe your question a little bit?
Sure.
And I tell you about a book that I recently read and I can't quit thinking about.
Great.
Okay, so it's actually the third time I've read this book. It's called The Art of Possibility. It was put out by Harvard Publishing, I believe. And it's this collaboration between a husband and wife team, Rosamund Stone Zander and Benjamin Zander. And Benjamin is a symphony conductor, and Rosamund is a psychologist, I believe, or something in that vein. And so they come together in this awesome collaboration. And it's not a self-help book. It's just a mechanism of totally reframing or giving us very different constructs to consider when we think about leadership, potential, and possibility. And so that collection of thoughts and different frameworks to consider is a really meaningful one for me. And so it is the third time I read it. I left it behind when I read it this last time for someone else to enjoy in a little free library because I enjoy a little free library. And the way it talks about building people and building relationship and moving through those really difficult points that we all hit as humans, it takes a very different approach than what a textbook might tell us to take. And so I really enjoyed that read.
Is it fiction or nonfiction?
It is nonfiction.
Okay.
So the collection of stories, some are from Rosamund's work in different leadership settings and her life as a therapist, and some are from Benjamin's lens as a conductor. And he really connects it back through powerful storytelling of creating music and finding those chords and those harmonies. And the way it's written, I can just see this visually unfolding.
That's cool.
And being put into practice. So it's a little out of the box. It really does invite us to move beyond the limitations that we may currently be facing or the limitations of this is the way we need to work through this, and to lead from a place of curiosity and creativity and collaboration. And that's the type of culture that we're trying to cultivate at Team ND. And so I think that's maybe why it really resonated with me.
I love that. Well, and you've read it 3 times. I mean, that alone.
I have a few
says
books
something.
that I read and read and read, but this one I did leave behind. Now someone else needs to love those well-worn pages.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I do. I have a book that I read every year, actually. And there's 7 books in the series, and I typically read or listen to all 7 every year.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's the Harry Potter series.
I was wondering.
It is.
I was
It's
wondering.
the Harry Potter series, and so I literally have read that over 20 times. And every time I do, I find something new. And I would imagine the Art of Possibility is the same thing. Every time you read it, you
Yes.
discover something new.
And I discover something new about myself because my life circumstances have changed. My career circumstances have changed. So I'm looking at it through a different lens
Yep.
every time. I hate to tell you this, Mary, but I have never read a Harry Potter book in my life.
That's okay.
So I know what's coming to me inter-office. No, I have them at home. My husband has read them. He really enjoys them. Fiction is hard for me. Someday I'll create space for it.
That's, you know what? If someone says to me, "Oh, I'm not a reader," I automatically say, "Then we just haven't found you the right book," right? Every book has its reader, and for some readers, that's fiction. For some, it's nonfiction. For some people, it's both. I grew up a reader of physical books. Some of that's my age. I read more audiobooks now than I do physical books, and I read more ebooks than I read physical books.
Sure. Yeah, I do a lot of audio too, but I really love the feel of the page and the smell of the print in the books.
Yep.
Some nostalgic aspect of it. I have to tell you this. I did misspeak. There is one fictional series that I am obsessed with.
Ooh.
The Thursday Murder Mystery Club.
Okay.
Tell me you've read them. You need, Mary.
I've read the first.
I'll tell you what, when I am 80 or 90 and I'm living in a assisted living facility, please let there be a Thursday Murder Mystery Club because I will join that.
I will add it to my list.
They take over the puzzle room, but they're not doing puzzles in there.
And I do love murder mystery. Cozy mysteries are my favorite.
Yes,
I love
cozy
cozy
mysteries.
mysteries and cozy romances. You know, someone gets killed, but it's kind of off scene. It's not gruesome. It's not gory. Same thing with romance. It's hugging and kissing, and that other stuff is just kind of off to the side.
Off to the
You know,
side,
it's
yeah.
referenced, but not descriptive. So I love a good cozy mystery. So I will add Thursday Murder Mystery Club to my list. Molly, it was awesome to hear about all the incredible things that HRMS is doing in leading our talent pool forward. A lot of state agencies really work directly with the public, and your agency is supporting the folks who are working directly with the public. So ultimately, you're also serving North Dakota citizens by engaging and training and working with Team ND.
Absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Until next time, I am State Librarian Mary Soucie, and this is Pathways Through the Prairie.